Broncos country, we need to have a serious conversation because something has been happening in this fan base over the last few days that genuinely concerns me. Jaleel McLaughlin had one electric preseason debut, one, and suddenly half of this fan base is ready to run RJ Harvey out of Denver on a rail. I need you to sit down, take a breath, and let me walk you through exactly why this reaction is not just premature, it's actually working against the very success this team is trying to build. Because Broncos country, we are not playing fantasy football here. We are trying to win a Super Bowl, and the difference between those two mindsets is bigger than you think. Before I get into why this running back panic is completely misguided, I've got to ask you for something. If you want the daily breakdown, the daily deep dive into everything happening with this football team, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel exists to keep Broncos country informed every single day of the year, not just on Sundays, and I need your support to keep building this into the biggest Broncos community on the internet. All right, let's get into it. Here's what actually happened. Jaleel McLaughlin stepped onto an NFL field for the first time and looked like an absolute stud. Every ounce of the hype was earned. He showed off vision, he showed off a slick spin move that left defenders grasping at air, and most importantly, he simply does not lose yardage. Even on his worst reps, he's falling forward for 3 or 4 yards instead of getting stood up in the backfield. That is precisely the trait that turns a running back into a closer, the guy who takes over in the fourth quarter of a January playoff game when every single yard matters. Nobody is disputing any of that. But here is where this fan base went completely off the rails because, in the exact same breath that people were praising McLaughlin, they started asking why the Broncos would even need RJ Harvey anymore. Why Broncos country? Why are we doing this to ourselves? Can we not simply enjoy having options? Can we not enjoy the fact that this coaching staff has assembled one of the deepest, most talented running back rooms in the entire National Football League? Because that's exactly what's happening here. And instead of celebrating it, a chunk of this fan base is trying to force an either or decision that doesn't need to exist. Let me introduce you to a concept that should change how you think about this entire backfield. The power of and. Everyone wants to frame this as Harvey or McLaughlin, Harvey or Coleman, pick one, discard the rest. But what if I told you this offense doesn't have to choose? What if I told you Denver can roll out RJ Harvey, Jonah Coleman, and J.K. Dobbins in the exact same season, all thriving, all contributing, all helping this team win football games? Yes, Sean Payton has said publicly that it's genuinely difficult to feature more than two backs in a single offense on a week-to-week basis. And that's a fair and honest point. You're not scripting touches for three separate running backs every single week when you've also got 4 or 5 wide receivers, a couple of tight ends, and a quarterback who can create on his own. But here's the thing, Broncos country, this isn't a fantasy football roster where you need one bell cow back racking up 30 touches a game to make your league mates jealous. This is a real NFL team trying to survive a brutal 17-game regular season, and that requires depth, not a single feature back running himself into the ground by December. And let's talk about what RJ Harvey actually brings to this offense, because I think people are already forgetting it. This is a running back who racked up more than 12 touchdowns as a rookie last season. 12. That is not a fluke. That is not a small sample size. That is a proven dynamic playmaker who found the end zone at an elite clip in his very first year in this league. Yes, when J.K. Dobbins went down with injury last season, Harvey's per carry success dipped. And yes, that gave some fans reason to worry. But here's what actually matters. The Broncos organization itself has stated on the record that they did not view that dip as a personnel problem. They did not believe it reflected some flaw in Harvey as a player. They believed it was scheme related, tied to how the offense was operating at that specific point in the season, not a referendum on Harvey's talent. And what did we actually see in this most recent preseason opener against Atlanta? We saw real balance. We saw the Broncos establishing the run game from snap one while operating under center. And right in the middle of that surge, we saw RJ Harvey running behind Quinn Miners and picking up real, meaningful first downs on inside runs. The traditional between the tackles running lanes are absolutely there for Harvey in this new scheme. The problem is that too many fans have been conditioned by highlight reel culture to only get excited about 20-yard, 25-yard explosive runs. That's not real football, Broncos country. That's arcade mode. Real, smash mouth NFL football is about stacking together 3 and 4 yard gains, occasionally busting a 6-yarder, and every so often breaking off a truly explosive run that changes the entire game. It's methodical, it's not a highlight reel on every single snap, and that's exactly okay. Now, let's actually break down what makes each of these three running backs different because Broncos country, this is not a redundancy problem. This is a luxury. J.K. Dobbins was a top 5 running back in the entire NFL last season in explosive runs of 10 plus yards when he was healthy, tied for 4th in that category league wide. Jonah Coleman, meanwhile, led his entire draft class in 10 plus yard runs, showing off the exact kind of contact balance and vision that gets NFL scouts excited. Both of these guys give you that traditional, powerful, tackle breaking running back profile, the kind of back who wears a defense down drive after drive. And then there's RJ Harvey, who is something else entirely. Harvey is your true home run hitter in this offense, the one running back on this entire roster with a gear nobody else possesses. Remember that game last season where he broke off a run of more than 60 yards? That wasn't a fluke. That was a glimpse of a player who can take any single touch to the house from anywhere on the field. While Dobbins and Coleman rumble and stumble their way to 20-yard gains through power and contact balance, Harvey is the one who simply runs away from an entire defense in the open field. His game is built on pure speed, elusiveness, and production in the passing game, a completely different toolkit than what Dobbins and Coleman bring to the table. So here's the actual blueprint this coaching staff appears to be building. Let Dobbins and Coleman wear a defense down over the course of a game, grinding out tough physical yardage snap after snap. And then once that defense is gassed, once the legs are tired and the gaps start opening up just a little wider, you bring in RJ Harvey to find the crease and turn a tired defense's mistake into a house call. That's not a running back controversy, Broncos country. That's a Super Bowl caliber rotation. And on top of all of it, Davis Webb has already shown a genuine commitment to establishing the run game early. Across 2 preseason games now, the Broncos have posted more than 150 rushing yards in each one, including that 162-yard rushing performance against Atlanta. So please, Broncos country, get excited about Jonah Coleman all you want, but do not bury RJ Harvey while you're at it. All 3 of these backs can coexist. All 3 of them can thrive, and all 3 of them are going to matter when this team is trying to close out games in January. All right, let's shift over to a genuinely serious situation developing on the defensive side of the ball because Broncos country, the battle for that crucial linebacker 3 role just took a dramatic and unfortunate turn. Lavelle Bailey, who had been running with the second team defense throughout the entirety of training camp, suffered a broken leg in that preseason opener against Atlanta and is expected to be out for a significant chunk of time. Likely landing on season-ending injured reserve. That is a brutal blow for a young player who had genuinely earned a real opportunity at that job, and it changes the entire complexion of Denver's linebacker room heading into the regular season. And this is exactly the moment where you find out just how quickly things can shift at a single position. You are always one injury away at every spot on this roster, but at linebacker specifically, where this coaching staff has been leaning on a lot of inexperienced depth all offseason, that reality just got magnified overnight. So who steps up? A lot of people immediately pointed to Kareem Reed as the obvious next man up, and it's easy to understand why. Reed flashed real quality on the exact play that set up Jose Jewell's incredible interception return, and he's now in year 2 of this defensive system, which should give him a real edge in terms of communication. But here's the twist that not enough people are talking about. Reed was primarily playing the weak side linebacker role, not the middle linebacker spot that Bailey was manning. When Bailey went down, the first player who actually stepped into that vacated role was Reed Murdoch, and it is not close. Murdoch played more total defensive snaps than any other player on the entire Broncos roster in that game against Atlanta. He was everywhere. He was flying to the football on nearly every single play. And by every account, he's already showing the communication skills and command necessary to run the defense from that middle linebacker spot, the exact traits that separate a rotational depth piece from a legitimate starter in waiting. That doesn't mean the competition is completely closed. Jordan Turner, who has been working his way back from a non-football injury designation and only recently returned to practice, remains squarely in the mix once he's fully up to speed. But right now, based purely on what showed up on the field, Reed Murdoch has the inside track to be the guy who steps in behind Alex Singleton and Justin Stranad if either of them goes down. And let's talk about who Reed Murdoch actually is for a moment, because this story deserves way more attention than it's currently getting. This kid was Mr. Irrelevant in this year's draft, the literal final pick of the entire draft class. The moment that selection was made, plenty of draft analysts and Broncos media insiders were already saying this felt like a massive value pick, a player who, based purely on his college production, should have gone somewhere in the fourth or fifth round at the absolute latest. And here's the stat that should make every single one of you pay closer attention. Research into where NFL teams actually find their starting inside linebackers shows the sweet spot sits right around that third to fifth round range of the draft. Reed Murdoch was picked dead last, and he is already playing like a player from that exact value range. 8 tackles against Atlanta, snaps played than anyone else on the entire defense. A batted down screen pass, physical, relentless tackling with real intent to strip the football loose. And on top of all of it, he's already handling communication duties, wearing the green dot, and setting the defense's checks. When a seventh round rookie is doing all of that in his very first professional football game, you take notice and you build your linebacker room around him. So here's how this room is likely shaking out. Alex Singleton and Justin Strnad remain the starters at the Mike and Will linebacker spots, respectively. Reed Murdoch appears to be firmly entrenched as the guy stepping in behind them if either one goes down. Corain Reed, who already made this roster a year ago and contributed directly to Jose Jules' pick six, looks like your fourth linebacker. And that leaves names like Jordan Turner and Torian York fighting for whatever roster spots remain, with special teams value likely playing a significant role in how that final decision shakes out. There's also a real chance the Broncos dip into the market for outside help, given how thin this room suddenly became, potentially even kicking the tires on players recently released by other teams looking for a fresh landing spot. Keep an eye on that front as camp rolls forward. Now let's pivot to some genuinely exciting news, because as this team heads back to practice this week ahead of Friday's home game against the Green Bay Packers, there is real hope that Denver is about to get significantly healthier at exactly the right time. Marvin Mims has already been back at practice in full pads, working through individual drills on the side field, and the expectation is that he continues progressing toward a return to full team activity. Starting center Luke Wattenberg has also been in full pads for nearly a full week of side field work, and if he's cleared for individual and team drills this week, that's a massive boost for an offensive line that has otherwise looked rock solid throughout the preseason. Offensive linemen Alex Forsyth and Alex Palczewski both warmed up before the Atlanta game, before the coaching staff made the smart, cautious call to hold them out, and both are expected to be back in the mix very soon as well. And then there's the situation everybody in Broncos country is watching most closely. Jalen Waddle. Waddle has not returned to full-on field work since suffering what Sean Payton described as a muscle tightness strain, an injury that was initially expected to sideline him for just 4 to 5 days. That timeline has clearly stretched further than anticipated, though by all accounts he's rehabbing well and not showing any signs of a limp during his side field work. The real question now is whether the Broncos ease him into a handful of preseason snaps against Green Bay just to get his timing synced up with Bo Nix, or whether they hold him out entirely and save his full debut for the Monday night season opener against Kansas City. Given how much this offense is being built around unlocking mismatches with Waddle in the mix, either approach makes sense, but even a handful of snaps this week to build chemistry with Bo Nix would go a long way heading into that massive week one showdown. And Broncos country, once you start imagining the full picture here, it becomes genuinely thrilling. Just look at what Davis Webb already dialed up against Atlanta, where a formation featuring Cortland Sutton, Evan Engram, and rookie Pat Bryant out of 11 personnel drew so much defensive attention toward Bryant and Engram that it left Sutton isolated in single coverage, resulting in a massive 40-yard gain. Now picture swapping Jalen Waddle into that exact same alignment. Suddenly, the defense has to account for both Waddle and Bryant working the middle of the field, which opens up even more favorable one-on-one opportunities for Sutton on the outside. And if a defense tries to roll extra safety help towards Sutton to compensate, that just leaves Pat Bryant or Waddle wide open on the other side. This is exactly why the Broncos surrendered a first and third round draft pick to acquire Waddle in the first place. It's not just about adding one more talented receiver, it's about completely reshaping the geometry of this entire passing offense, giving Davis Webb a genuine pick your poison approach that most opposing defensive coordinators are going to lose sleep over. And remember, this entire vision still doesn't even fully account for Troy Franklin, who quietly finished second on the team in targets last season, working his way back into a crowded, dangerous receiver room of his own. Perhaps the most exciting development of all, though, has nothing to do with any single skill player. It's the fact that the game appears to genuinely be slowing down for Bo Nix. Sean Payton himself has pointed out that Nix is processing defensive looks faster and with far more anticipation than he was a season ago. And Nix has credited facing Vance Joseph's defense every single day in practice for preparing him for nearly anything a real opponent could throw at him on Sunday. Combine that natural growth with a receiving core full of players who can win on their own and create explosive plays after the catch, and you start to understand exactly why this coaching staff is buzzing with confidence. It's the same formula that turned Josh Allen into an MVP caliber quarterback in Buffalo, adding a dynamic receiving weapon at the exact moment the game was already starting to slow down for the guy throwing him the football. And on top of the scheme and the personnel, there's one more factor that shouldn't be overlooked: organizational stability. This coaching staff, this system, this core roster, it's all remained largely intact. No coordinator overhauls, no scheme overhauls, no instability at the top. That continuity is exactly what allows a quarterback entering year 3 to take a genuine leap forward. So, Broncos country, here's where we stand as this team heads back to the practice field. A running back room so deep it has fans arguing about which problem is actually a luxury. A linebacker room that just got shaken up by injury, but is already showing off a stunning 7th round find in Reed Murdoch. And a receiving core on the verge of getting significantly healthier at the exact moment this offense needs it most, heading into Friday's game against Green Bay, and ultimately that massive Monday night showdown in Kansas City. Before you head out, I need you locked in for one more moment. If this breakdown gave you a new perspective on this running back room, or got you as fired up about Reed Murdoch as I am, smash that like button right now. Drop a comment down below with your take, because I promise you, I read every single one of them. And if you have not subscribed to this channel yet, there is no better time than right now. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and make sure you never miss a single update as this team barrels toward week 1. Let's stay locked in, Broncos country. There's a lot of unfinished business ahead, and it starts with staying healthy, building this depth, and marching straight into Kansas City ready to make a statement. Until next time, Broncos country, go Broncos.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 2,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.